Your Steve Jones Show podcast will start shortly. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Brewers Outlet, your beverage supermarket on Reagan Street in Sunbury. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by our great friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. It is a beautiful weekend on tap, and you need to make sure that you have plenty on tap. That, of course, means Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, waters, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts. Fresh and hot every day. And the pickle bar, led by the barrels, the dills. Second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. And I'm in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Our good friend Bob Buhner just bought brand new Ford Escape from our good friends at Sunbury Motors on Wednesday, as a matter of fact. Wednesday morning he bought a vehicle over there. And that's where I'm getting my next vehicle, without a doubt. All right, time now for our play-by-play call of the day. And it's the Rockies walking it off over the Padres.
Yates checks Story at second. The pitch driven towards left, going back, and this one is gone! Ian Desmond does it again! A walk-off winner for Ian Desmond. This place is going crazy.
And it should. Big win for the Rockies last night, beating the Padres 4-3. All right. These are never the easiest ones to do, but Tim May of the Columbus Dispatch is always willing to come on and talk about any subject. Good, hard, whatever it may be. Tim, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Good to be on, I think.
No, you're talking to me, Tim. You're fine. Let's start with this. One thing that you'll discover is that if you live around here, you probably have a better handle on what happened around here. You live there. What do people there and in your job understand about the situation that maybe somebody outside Ohio would not?
I don't know, man, because that's a good. I think it's a good question. I don't mean to be judging questions.
Oh, no. In other words, I know.
Usually when somebody says that's a good question, it means they're trying to think of a good answer. They're just stalling.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, never think you've seen it all. That's my reaction to all this. And number two, as I'm learning, Urban Meyer, one of the more successful coaches in college football history, obviously like Joe Paterno was way back when, but Urban Meyer made some mistakes. His career was sort of like on the line yesterday when you really get right down to it, almost like a jury. 12 angry men. This was like maybe 17. Who knows what they were, men and a couple of women deciding his fate. And it went into the day based on people I knew who were talking to people on the board of trustees. Not direct line but indirect line. I got the impression that there was a chance he could be back coaching the team as soon as later in the afternoon when the day started. But the people who held out for penalties, I guess, ruled the day in the board of trustees meeting with the president. And the details that have been released since then show that obviously he had a problem with one assistant coach by the name of Zach Smith, who he fired, as you know, back on July the 23rd of this year. And, it just takes too long to go through all the details of everything.
Right.
But the bottom line is Urban Meyer, for want of another word, regretted maybe keeping Zach Smith around as long as he did. But as everybody knows, Zach Smith was the grandson of Earl Bruce, a former head coach at Ohio State, whom Urban Meyer had always considered his greatest mentor, short of his father. So sometimes the guy that you bring along that still is sort of a cut up in class, he continues to be the cut up in class, and those are the guys that usually get you in trouble one way or the other, and that was the case here. And but that's kind of it in a nutshell from the standpoint of how things went down. The domestic abuse, violence thing. It was reiterated last night. Zach Smith was never arrested or charged while in Columbus, Ohio area with domestic abuse, or based on the allegations from 2015, especially, we're at the heart of this. That started this whole thing, and some people around the country don't want to understand that. I mean, that there may be two sides to a story, but when it comes to he said, she said, in those kind of instances, 99% of the people are going to side with the she said part, especially when you learn more about Zach Smith and his lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that's where you are. But Urban Meyer has been quick to react to any type of allegations of domestic abuse or charges against, definitely concerning his players, and you just have to look up the record on that. But,
right. I want to ask.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm wandering because this whole thing wanders.
Yeah,
if you read the full report.
I guess there's an original Powell report where arrest is checked, and then a subsequent one where it's not. Okay, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, the bottom line is there was no arrest,
right.
So that's the bottom line on that anyway. So it doesn't.
But why was he arrested in July of this year by just pulling the car into the driveway?
He wasn't arrested. He was
this year.
He was answering a summons. He was answering a summons about a complaint of criminal trespassing brought by his ex-wife from May. He was never arrested on that. He was. It was basically a charge of criminal trespassing when he and his wife was not at the appointed place to drop off his kid after an hour, and so he just drove to the apartment where she lives, his duplex.
Right.
And he was dropping off his kid. He never even got out of the car. She was taking pictures of him in the driveway and dropping off the kid. And then come to find out, there probably was no restraining or protective order in play at that point. That will be debated at a court case coming up second week in September.
Right. Yeah.
And then she asked for a restraining order. He was answering to that on July the 20th, and then she asked for a restraining order against him a couple of days later.
Okay.
Which was granted, because usually those are granted, and then you find out whether they're correct or not. But yeah, he was not arrested even for this. Go ahead.
What about item number 3 in the report, which says, and I'll pick it up a paragraph down, we also learned during the investigation that Coach Meyer has sometimes had significant memory issues in other situations where he had prior extensive knowledge of events. He has also periodically taken medicine that can negatively impair his memory, concentration, and focus. All of these factors also need to be considered and weighed in assessing Coach Meyer's mindset on July 24th. Did you know about that, or was that new information for you?
Well, that was new information, but I know that he's dealt most of his, or quite a while in his adult life, with an arachnoid cyst in his skull, which can sometimes bring great pain, and I think occasionally, evidently, he takes some medication. I'm sure that's what it's about, to deal with that. So, but I didn't even know where to even start or stop with that with that thing, because, well, does that mean he was on that medication on July the 24th, or what are you telling us here? They didn't get that specific about it.
I mean, is he on that medication?
We didn't get that full report like that until after the press conference was over anyway.
Right. I mean, is he taking that medication on game day?
I have no idea. Like I just said, we didn't get to ask that question.
Oh no, I'm just
stuff I don't know about.
Yeah, you and I are talking back and forth there. I mean, that's a legitimate. Okay, are you taking it on?
Well, maybe. I mean, but that's like 2000. That's like the July 24th thing. He was responding. I was the first person to even ask him a question that morning when he got off the elevator because we hadn't gotten to talk to him. And me and a guy named Bill Landis from Cleveland.com and Dan Murphy walked up from ESPN.com and he was responding initially and basically all day to a report that had been written that on previous night that Zach Smith had been arrested and charged in 2015 for this domestic abuse thing, when in fact all it had been was an allegation. There had been no arrest or charge. Like you said, there was a check mark on a sheet of paper that was erroneous, or at least a sheet of paper that Brett McMurphy had. And but the bottom line is he was never arrested or charged for that. Still hasn't been, and that's why Urban Meyer, for one of another word, kind of knee-jerked his reaction, even though, as you read the report now, that he was counseled on how to deal with it by Gene Smith, the athletic director, the night before, because they feverishly were looking around. They had already fired Zach Smith and were feverishly looking around to find any evidence of this arrest and stuff, because one of the problems with Zach Smith was he didn't always tell Urban Meyer when he got in trouble. Most of the time he didn't, and that's what finally got him fired. But there was no. So Urban Meyer's initial responses was to the assertion that he had let a guy get arrested and charged with domestic violence and did nothing about it.
Right.
And he fought back vigorously against that. But water under the dam, as Earl Bruce used to say now.
We know that Zach Smith is the late Earl Bruce's grandson. As you read this, I can see that maybe holding sway over a couple of things. But once you get to 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, what was it about Zach Smith that, I mean, look, if suddenly it's Coach Steve Jones or it's Coach Tim May, you and I are gone. I mean, as you start reading, how many times in that report was if you do that again, you'll be fired? You and I would have been gone. What is it about him that held sway beyond just being Earl Bruce's grandson?
Well, I was talking to my wife about the very same thing today, and I said, these had all happened. All these things had happened within like a 3-month span. You'd go, okay, boom, But these happened intermittently and sporadically, and it's kind of like I'm not justifying. I'm just telling you, how it works sometimes. For example, when you've got, everybody has kids. People who have kids, all the kids aren't the same, and you have this one. Almost everybody has one kid who kind of gets in trouble, and he kind of goes right, and he gets in trouble again. He kind of goes right. I mean, a lot of people have that, and they deal with it, and it's not until you look back on it 6 years later and you go, holy smokes! I mean, you let this guy kind of slide. Well, Urban Meyer's dealing with a huge program and things like that, but clearly he had a blind spot. That may not be the right word, but a near spot. Let's put it that way. When it came to Zach Smith and his transgressions, and clearly, and he even admitted that last night. That he was the grandson of his mentor, and he gave him more rope than he deserved. And now, now he's paying the price for that, obviously.
Okay, so what was in that report that, we mentioned the one area about Zach Smith. Was there anything else in that report that over time the people in the room as reporters you didn't know until, because again, I thought in terms of the ability to put together the report, in terms of saying we found this, we found this, we found this, all right, I give them a lot of credit. I thought that part was pretty thorough.
Yeah, I mean, but we'd all like to see more of the records from it, but I don't know if we'll ever be privy to that. Obviously, it was a publicly funded investigation, so we should be privy maybe to more than what we got.
I agree.
But then past that, I'm not. This is just me. I mean, I'm not into reading volumes of depositions, and it's not even really depositions because there's no lawsuit involved. You're just talking to lawyers who are asking you pointed questions. But bottom line is, you'd like a little more feeling like who was the other coach at that strip club back in whenever it was, 2014.
Yeah.
That where you were at, which could possibly be an NCAA violation. That's not even clear now. But where you spent $600, well, there was another guy having fun with you. I'm talking about Zach Smith, and So you'd like to know things like that. But bottom line is, yeah, I mean, sometimes it just becomes overload. But you know this, it came down to finally in the end, Ohio State was embarrassed, by what happened.
Sure.
That's why the guy has a 3-game suspension and will work like will go for almost a month without pay. And for me, that'd be a drop in the bucket. It'd be a significant thing for me, but it's going to be a $400,000 or $500,000 hit for Urban Meyer,
right.
And then past that, the athletic director is going to be suspended because clearly they didn't, even though they were aware of the 2015 allegations, and the allegations were brought to their attention by someone else at Ohio State who had heard from the Powell Police Department, the city of Powell Police Department. The idea was, no arrest or charge was made, but the assertion was more could have been done, But of course, the more part was never answered last night. What do you mean by more?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Tim, how troubling was it to you about the part of the report that discusses the text messages beyond 1 year not being in the phone, and the fact that he inquired about that?
Oh well, obviously, if you want to get an FOIA on text messages and stuff, and they're not there, that troubles you now in retrospect. But of course, you didn't know about it. But
right, sure. But he asked about it after he came back from Chicago.
Right. So yeah, I don't. You know my degree of troubling. I don't know how to answer the question, except obviously it's a publicly. Obviously, Ohio State's a self-supporting athletic department,
sure,
like Penn State, I'm sure. But
yes, it is.
It's considered a public phone, I guess. So yeah, you're troubled when somebody does something like that. I remember when Jim Trussell investigation was going on back in 2011. We sought the text phone or text message or history, but back then you couldn't retrieve the actual text messages. But the funny thing was, I was the second most. I had text messages with Jim Trussell second most of anybody, I think, because I always saw it as my one communication device that he can't ignore, And but anyway, bottom line is, you're troubled a little bit if you're looking for evidence on A, B, C, and D and things, but I don't know where to go other than that. Yes, you're troubled by it.
Two more questions, and one about this, and then I'll move forward for a second. And it's what about the fact that it doesn't appear that there was vetting on Zach Smith when he was hired at Ohio State? After I think he had spent at Marshall and Temple, I think he had been at, and then that there appears to not have been vetting in the athletic department about the hire.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's accurate that there wasn't vetting, but it wasn't. I don't know if that. I don't even know how that would have worked on a situation where there was an arrest made back in 2009, but there was no charges coming from it. I don't know how that shows up on a scan, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it, a background check,
a nexus search or something.
I think the troubling part. The troubling part was it was not volunteered by either Urban Meyer or Zach Smith when it came up. But I can legitimately believe that they might have thought, well, you know what, nothing came of this, so there was no charge. It's like being, I'm not going to say that, but bottom line, there's no charge. There was no charge came from it, so they might not have felt that they needed to own up to it, so to speak. So I don't know how to answer it other than that.
Yeah, no, I just thought I'd at least bring it up. One final question that deals with the team itself. Look, they're 18 to 22-year-old guys. They're out there fighting for their jobs. I'm going to guess you probably have been to, 2 hours worth of practice and 30 minutes of stretching? Maybe an hour of stretching.
No, more like an hour's worth of practice and 5 minutes of stretching.
There you go. Oh, so see, minimal stretching. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's probably more than that.
Yeah.
I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Look, Urban aside, what do you think of this team?
Oh, on the flip side, as the old saying goes, this is a loaded football team, and has some capable coaches leading it. And I don't know, man. It's like you never know how things are going to hit, but football teams are always looking for a chip to put on their shoulder, even when they maybe don't have one.
Right
now, they've got one, and a legitimate chip, and probably in their eyes. And whenever you take a talented team and give it even more impetus, sometimes good things can happen. I just keep thinking back to that Penn State team from a couple of years ago. Let's face it, James Franklin. Nobody probably admitted it, but James Franklin was kind of on the ropes, and all of a sudden they get that miracle win. And I call it miracle win because when you do it with two block kicks, you got some things going for you that night. Mm-hmm. But they haven't been the same team since, and they're one of the more exciting offensive teams in the country with Trace McSorley at the controls. And I'm not just making it a local angle there for you. You never know what's going to click on the team, and suddenly everything changes. And that's what happened with Penn State. But this is a very, very deep and talented a team as Urban Meyer's had at Ohio State. And, you have to remember he won a 2014 national championship. And I don't mean they necessarily have an Ezekiel Elliott or a Joey Bosa, but they do have a Nick Bosa. And they have two running backs who gained 1,000 yards, and they have a quarterback that possibly could stretch this offense to the ideal that Urban Meyer's always wanted, a very, very every corner of the field type passing attack threat with a power running game and a wide game. So I don't know. I think they feel pretty good about their situation as far as being number one, talented, and now number two with an impetus that maybe they didn't have 4 weeks ago.
Great job. You always do a great job. Appreciate it very much. I hope at least on your end you felt the questions were fair and we were able to had a good conversation about it.
Oh yeah, man. Like the press conference last night though. So you get like maybe two shots at questions. And for example, I had to ask one question about the situation, and then I asked one question with Urban about how tough is it been not being with your team and stuff. Only because my assignment was to write something about the team rebounding or moving on from this one way or the other, because that's the way it is, But in any kind of, just like you just asked me, like 12, I would like to have asked about 400 questions last night because, they've been building up, especially over the stuff that we talked about, and especially letting a young coach who probably didn't deserve to be hired there in the first place then keep sliding, I mean, and that got asked, and he answered the question, and he basically admitted, that was a mistake, but what do you do now? You move on. So there you go.
Hey, I thought you did great, really, in a really tough spot because you're answering stuff you don't really have all the answers to, and I appreciate the fact that you and I at least had a nice give and take, open dialogue about it.
All right, man. Anytime.
Hey, anytime. Hey, Tim, thanks so much. We'll talk to you the week of the Ohio State game.
Yeah, see you then, man.
We'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Brewers Outlet.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
7 new Fords every day. Sunbury Motors needs to average 7 new Fords sold per day until the end of August. So you win with these discounts. Save up to a whopping $16,200 on the area's largest selection of new 2018 Ford trucks. Choose from over 80 trucks with new 2018 Ford F-150s slashed to as low as $25,995. Pick from 56 2018 Ford Escapes priced as low as $18,820. And there's 0% financing for up to 72 months, plus discounts as high as $5,000 on many new Fords. SMCS 21 2018 Ford Focuses starting at $14,925. SMC is where you want to be in August for the largest selection and massive discounts on new Fords. Sunbury Motors Ford in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, proudly serving the Susquehanna Valley and all of Central PA for over a century. Hurry in! SMC will do whatever it takes to sell 7 new Fords per day till the end of August.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, waters, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and hot every day. And the Brewers Outlet specials between now and Tuesday. Miller Lite 24-pack cans, just $13.95. Zima 24-pack bottles, $19.95. New Belgium 12-pack cans, $9.95. And, of course, the pickle bar is second to none, led by the barrels and the dills. I've almost cleaned out the entire entity of barrels that he gave me the other day. It was all cleaned out. Well done. All right. High school football starts tonight. It is Lewisburg against Selinsgrove and Eagle 107. Lewisburg on 100.9 The Valley. And tonight on WKOK, Shikellamy is against Danville. I will allow you, Sean, to introduce our next guest.
The one and only. The tradition unlike any other, here every Friday afternoon, 4:35 on WKOK. The CEO of Jones Metal, Kevin Jones.
CEO, I haven't been to bed. I had to pull an all-nighter. Is Steve there?
Yes, I showed up today.
Hi, Steve. It's Urban.
Yeah, I bet it is.
I'm feeling really bad, Steve. Can you help me?
I'm supposed to be talking to my brother right now, so no.
He's at work. He hired me.
He hired
a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to sweep the floors again.
Unreal.
I was telling Sean off the air. This put me over the edge. What's that guy's name again, Sean? Laurinaitis?
James Laurinaitis, yeah. One of the top linebackers from Ohio State. Yes, he's now doing work on BTN and FS1, right, Steve?
Yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they were interviewing him on ESPN, and the question was, do you believe Coach Meyer would lie like that or was lying? And he said, you have to understand something about Coach Meyer. If it's not about winning football, you can talk to him, and it goes in one ear, out the other. So he may not have grasped everything because it wasn't football. I said, oh, my God, yeah, you're kidding me, right? This woman's getting the crap beat out of her, and because it's not about winning football, he doesn't care. I'm done with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer should quit. So if I had a kid, I would not let him within 10 miles of my kid. I would not let him coach him. So
a lot of people feel that way.
Urban Meyer, because he knew everything that was going on, and all he cared about was winning football games, and that's it. So.
Well, I'll give you one that to me is an absolute that he knew. Okay, no matter what. Okay, when that female staffer got moved to a new job because of the inter-office shenanigans, that move doesn't happen unless the supervisor approves it. He's the supervisor.
Is it true? And I just caught the end of it today, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. When he was at Florida, or the Florida State? Florida. And he had Tim Tebow, who was just a wonderful human being. Some people don't like him. I think Tim Tebow is just a wonderful guy and does wonderful things for people. But the 38 other guys on the championship team since have been arrested for some crime or other.
Well, he had 31 arrested while he was there.
That's incredible. That just goes to show it is just about football with him. He could care less about anybody else around him, I want to come on your show and have a beat-up Urban Meyer day, but nobody here wants to listen to me, so I can only vent to you guys.
I think the other thing that stood out for me was, when Shelley Meyer said to Urban, "This guy scares me." Then did that just happen like a month ago, right before Big Ten Media Day, that finally that lit the light above Urban's head? Oh boy, I got to do something about this guy. So, obviously, I don't think we're ever going to get the complete, absolute truth as to of an exact 100% accurate timetable, but of what happened and what transpired. But
guys, we're all married, right? If your wife's friend is getting the tar beat out of her, she's going to tell you about it. You know what I mean?
I can guarantee you, in no uncertain terms, that Kathy Jones, who tells me literally everything, would have told me. I can tell you, literally everything.
Exactly. Any woman is going to be just awesome, and the fact that the guy doing the beating, you hired. Of course, she's going to say he knew everything about it, but the guy was a good football coach. You know
what? I did say earlier in the show, I said, look, no offense, I've watched the tapes for years. Ohio State's not the cradle of wide receivers.
Well, for whatever reason, this was Coach Urban's quote, unquote, my heart was bigger than my head. Oh, my God, you like the guy? I'll
because
tell you right now,
he's
if
Earl
I
Bruce's...
met anybody who raised a hand to a woman and hit that woman, not only wouldn't they be my friend, I'd pop them one, just because it would be fun. I don't have a friend that I know of who ever beat up a woman, and they certainly would not work for me. So that's for sure.
Yeah, the excuse is going to be, and I'm just telling you what the excuse is, that he's Earl Bruce's grandson. Earl Bruce, the former head coach at Ohio State.
Yeah.
He's the one that really took Urban Meyer, a young Urban Meyer, under his wing. So there's always been that connection. But my point has been, okay, maybe that allows you to get through the first one, maybe being Earl Bruce's grandson gets you to the second one. But numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you are gone, and gone.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I haven't heard a clear answer on this. Is the NCAA going to get involved and have their own investigation, or is it done?
I don't think so. I think what's done is done.
So any school can do this to save their coach, because and I want to tell you something right now. It came from the Stephen A. Smith show, and I don't want to get into racism and all that stuff, but Stephen A. Smith I like a lot. His show is very good, and he's the one who brought this up. And he said, I will bet you any amount that if that was a black head football coach, he'd have been fired. What do you think about that?
I've maintained that if you substituted another name in there, right? I'm just generic. Substituted another name in there, that they're not around.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is, and I would never want to offend anyone that way. I'm just quoting what he said, and
right, I know you said that.
I tend to believe he was right. That for some reason, well, like Sean said in very colorful terms before we came on the air, that that was funny. There's no way they were going to fire him. All they care about is winning football games. That's it. And this was as big a slap on the wrist as you could possibly have.
And it makes you wonder on Wednesday when the trustees were meeting, okay, if we're going to let go of this guy, who are we going to find that's better? Who is available out there that we could replace that has won just as many, if not more, national championships than Urban Meyer, so we don't skip a beat in the program?
Yeah. They don't care what kind of guy he is. All they care is winning the Super Bowl. They lose every freaking game.
Well, I tell you, what's going to be interesting is to see how he handles, because what's interesting about the press conference the other night, which, by the way, was an absolutely bad look for them. The press conference was a bad look. I mean, they looked like they didn't want to be there. They looked like they didn't care.
Well, they basically said Urban had his way with them. That meeting was supposed to last like an hour, and Urban kept them in there all day long because he would not agree to what they said. He doesn't think he did anything wrong.
You can tell he doesn't.
Yeah.
But what's going to be interesting is what they did is they did the press conference, but then they released the written report after. Well, that's where all the questions came into play. All the questions came into play about, well, wait a minute, what about this part here about text messages? Wait a minute, what about this part here about memory loss and medication? I mean, that's why I asked Tim May. I said, is Urban Meyer taking that medication on game day? I mean, that's a fair question, but it's a fair question. You know, if the answer is no, the answer is no. But you know, what's going to happen?
Point before.
But what's going to happen? Now, let me finish. What's going to happen now is that when he comes back, he is going to be asked all these questions in every market he goes to, over and over and over. And if he won't
have plenty
answer,
of time to have an answer. He'll have a generic answer.
He had plenty of time in Chicago to have an answer, and he blew it.
But he doesn't care, because this is something Sean brought up earlier to me, and he's 100% spot on. He's that star quarterback in high school or college, and he got another F. And he basically looks at the teacher, give me an A. Don't you know who I am? I don't have to follow rules because of who I am.
Yeah, that was the analogy that David Jones wrote that David Jones wrote in his great write-up on PennLive.com from Wednesday night yesterday morning, and that's where that came from.
Yeah, that is so true. That's what he looked like at the press conference. Like, who do you people think you are? Don't you know who I am?
Yeah, it's
what
like, I'm here to
with?
coach my football team. You are keeping me away from coaching my football team. It's like, that's not supposed to happen.
No, I'm sorry. I'm a business owner, and when you own it, or you're the CEO, or you're the head football coach, if he hasn't at this point realized that he has more responsibilities than just coaching a football team, then he's an idiot. He doesn't belong being there. He knows the rules. That all these guys know the rules. He tried to bend them because, hey, I'm Urban. How many of these pro athletes have we seen that think that they're above and better than everybody else? I mean, when you think that sports is more important than anything else in the world, and you're that driven, then you need to talk to somebody about your problems, you know? It's called a football game. It's a game. You know, it's not life and death. And good Lord. Didn't he almost have a breakdown when he was at Florida?
Yeah, I did his last game at Florida.
Huh?
I did his last game at Florida.
Yeah, but didn't he have a breakdown or something after the game? He got away from football because he said he was just too intense about it, or something. I don't know.
Who knows?
Sounded like he had home problems because of it, but oh well.
Oh yeah,
won a game this week, didn't they?
Yeah, he had stepped down in like 2009, had some kind of muscle heart valve defect or a heart attack or something. So mentally broke down. Yeah.
Well.
Oh well.
Yeah, the Red Sox did win. They got 90 wins now. So.
And no other team in the league has 80.
Can I say something about Aaron Nola? I haven't had a chance to mention this today. He's 15-3 for the Phillies. He outdueled Max Scherzer yesterday. Outdueled him. Two great pitchers head-to-head. Now, I think it takes a couple of years before you can declare that a guy is one of the top aces in baseball. But Aaron Nola is putting himself on the path to being one of the top aces in baseball if he continues at this rate. That was a brilliant performance by him yesterday.
It sure was. I'll tell you what, if you would have told me that the Phillies would win with only 3 hits against Max Scherzer, I probably would have laughed. But, yeah, very impressive.
How about the Eagles, Cleveland Browns, huh?
Okay, the Phillies outscored the Eagles yesterday.
5-0.
Phillies 2, Eagles nothing.
I get home from announcing a baseball game last night, and there's 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and it's still 5-0. And I just done the scoreboard in the postgame show, and I said the Browns, by the way, lead the Eagles 5-0. Baker Mayfield with a ground rule double the drive-in too.
He got thrown out at the plate.
I wasn't planning to watch any of that game last night, but then with the whole thing about Tyrod Taylor and his hand or thumb, and he ran into the locker room and came back out, and thinking, okay, that pulled me in for a little while, but that was it.
I mean, the NFL preseason is doing nothing to get you excited about the season.
The NFL is doing nothing to get you, and we talked about this last year. I was talking to a guy the other night, said I was the biggest sports fan ever, but I have had it with the NFL, baseball. He said that deal, when they wouldn't stand for the national anthem, I never watched another football game.
A lot of people have been saying that.
Yeah, people's opinions have not changed. That they are going to take another beating this year. I think they're going to take a lot of beatings.
More games at that last night on primetime TV. Just wonder if we're going to maybe chop the preseason down to maybe 3 games. I mean, the older I get, the more I don't care about these preseason games. I used to be excited to watch them.
Yeah, me too. It used to be like, okay, football's back, and I'd watch that first game, and I'd watch the second game. Now, I really would rarely watch the fourth game. But I mean, I've watched nothing. Now, I will say, Kev, you'll love this. My grandson, Colin, who's 7 now.
Yeah.
His dad, Mike Dawson, is taking him to his first pro football game tomorrow, the Steelers and the Titans. And Colin loves the Tennessee Titans. So he's wearing his Marcus Mariota jersey to the game tomorrow. Mike says, do you think, Steve, that'll be a problem? I said, he's 7, for goodness sakes. I said, you got to be a total moron to go after a 7-year-old in the stands.
Remember we used to go to the Yale Bowl and see the Giants and the Jets?
Giants and the Jets, Giants and the Cardinals. I mean, we went down. It was called the Albie Booth game. It was a preseason game at Yale Bowl, and you and I went down. We were kids.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing.
We had to get a ride. Our parents went with us. We were little. Remember that one? It was so hot. It was like 95 degrees.
It was. And we were, trying to get beverages and whatever, and we were just. But then you and I were like, well, we don't want to leave. You and I, we didn't want to leave. Yeah, we had a blast doing that. We loved it. Then
Homer Jones.
We went up. Homer Jones, Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah.
Then you and I went up to Patriots camp. Remember that? With Mr. Lane. Mr. Lane across the street took us.
Yeah, I remember. Hey, what do you think about Pawtucket, huh? No more Pawtucket.
Boy, I'll tell you, that tells you, you're talking earlier about, like, it's just a game.
Yeah.
College, athletic departments are now a 9-figure business, over $100 million businesses. That's what the Pawtucket to Worcester thing is. It's all business. Worcester gave them a sweetheart deal. They get a AAA team after Pawtucket's been in baseball since 1971. I know.
Been a great ride. I was stunned. I said, "Why would you do that?"
I know. I agree.
It's all Rhode Island has. The Pawtucket Red Sox. Why take it away? So.
And they
did. And I'm hurt with your lead-in about that you wiped out all the pickles out of the barrel. Where are my pickles?
They're coming.
What did I tell you on Wednesday?
If you had your hands on pickles, where are my... We're in a new season.
Bob Buhner took the Old Bay pickles. I think they were scheduled for
your
you.
Station for news, weather, business, and CBS Sports Radio. News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury and on WKOK.com.